Whale Fam, and welcome to another episode of the Whale FM Community Spotlight. I am Rude Moose, and we have the amazing OX Wes here as your hosts today. We are very excited for this episode. As you know, Whale is the home of the absolute most robust collection of artists and builders, collectors, and enthusiasts, all under one oceanic roof. And today we are going to look to highlight some projects and art that's being worked on by our diverse and potent creative community. So, joining us today, first we're going to talk to Troublescape, and after Troublescape, we'll be chatting with Arwin, which is a very awesome lineup. We will also have a POAP available today, so keep your POAP app ready if you have one. Make sure that you've already registered using an ETH address or an ENS or email. And when we are ready during the show, we will tell you the secret phrase that you will then enter to potentially get one of these limited edition collectors community spotlight POAPs for today. So, with that being said, I think that's all we have by way of introductions. Let's get us kicked off by pulling Troublescape onto the stage and welcoming him. Here we go. Troublescape, welcome to the stage. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you guys for hosting this and inviting me up. This is super exciting. Very glad to be here this morning.
Glad to have you.
We're very excited to have you. We know that you are a multidiscipline visual artist. So we're talking illustration, photography. You have an art education. Why don't you, in your own words, give us your background and tell us, what makes you Troublescape?
Oh, okay. The second part's a little harder than the first part, I think. So let's start there. Yeah, so I went to University of Windsor. I took fine arts. I studied fine arts there for 4 years. After the first year, though, I was like thinking, what on earth am I going to do with an art degree? And I switched my majors completely. I took biology for 2 years, and then 2 years into that, I was like, what am I going to do with a biology degree? I don't want to be a doctor or work in a lab or something. And I was like, at least I liked art, so I switched back and finished off my art degree. And so it was pretty multidisciplinary. I was a photography major. After the first couple of years, you had to choose, what major you wanted to focus on more. And so, but before that, and during the last, it was a 4-year program, and that whole time, so you're doing drawing, sculpting, painting, like printmaking and Talio and lithography and all sorts of stuff. Studying art history. And so the photography thing, I just fell in love with photography while I was there. And it was a black and white darkroom. And I still miss doing that. When I finished that program, I ended up going to teachers college because, well, I needed a job of some sort. And so I've been basically teaching high school art for the last 20 years or so. And in my head, I thought, oh, this is going to be awesome. I'll go to work, and then after work, I'll be able to focus on my own artwork. And that just never manifested somehow. There's too many other things going on once you have an adult life outside of school. And then, got married, had kids, and all that stuff is going on. Now my kids are just getting a little older now, and I've been still just taking photos and stuff the whole time, and drawing and sketching and stuff whenever I could, and the odd painting here and there. But it's just been hard to find the time to do all that stuff, right, when you're trying to do everything else as well. So my kids are a little older now, and I'm finding some more time and having a little bit of freedom. And it was kind of weird. It's what am I gonna do with myself? Like right now, my kids are doing stuff, and it's oh my God, I can actually do something. What am I gonna do here? So during COVID and throughout this last couple of years or so, I've been finding that I've had more time that I can kind of focus on my own stuff and kind of getting back into that. So that is that's the plan anyways. So we'll continue on this course and keep making art, which is awesome. I've been missing producing finished pieces. So most of what I've been doing is just lots of sketchbooks. I've got, tons of sketchbooks with drawings. I think you guys have some of those. I don't know. We could look at some. Yeah. And so I was making these drawings just in like sketchbooks, and I thought they looked super cool. And these sort of started on random papers while I was at work and stuff, right, or on lunch break or whatever, and doodling instead of doing what I'm supposed to be doing, probably. So at some point I was like, what am I going to do with all these drawings? I thought they looked super cool, but they're not really, they don't look like something you could generally put up in a gallery space or something, right? Like they're going to want to see like something more finished. Like they look like sketches. But I've for a long time, I tried to do different things. I've tried to do paintings with them, like acrylic paintings and oil paintings on canvas and different things. And they just never worked out. And I was trying to ramp up the scale and larger papers and stuff, and trying different pens and markers and different mediums and things. And I just always liked them better when they were that size with just like black outlines and stuff. I just never liked them when I tried to do anything else with them. And then I got an iPad and started doing stuff in Procreate, and I was like, I just thought they looked so amazing like that, just the slick lines. That's what I was trying to do with the pen on the paper. It's just like clean black lines. And sometimes there's color and different things in there, but it sort of just clicked. And then people started talking about NFTs and things, and I was like, what on earth is this? People are selling their artwork as NFTs online. And I'm like, I can do it online. I don't have to go out to galleries and like try to network with people in real life. I can do it from my house while I'm home with my kids, like today. And so that's sort of, I don't know if that I could keep going, or I don't know if that answers the question or what, if we want to.
No, that definitely answers the question. We actually had somebody, I'm going to pull up Discord, because somebody has picked up, they said, one of your object pieces and shared it in the chat.
Oh yeah, Trent. I believe Trent told us about this, right? Yeah, that was super exciting.
Yeah, so more art that's happening that I think is, as you were saying, those black lines, that just having that, like, there's so much detail here, which is amazing, because the colors are, not super varied, like you just have shades, and yet there's so much that you were able to bring in terms of, the emotion and feeling, like there, no matter how many times I look at it, there's still something else to see.
Yeah, there is more detail than it looks like at first. Like they're pretty large pixel wise. So when I'm zooming in, I work on them really zoomed in on the screen, and if I can see pixels, I don't like that so much. I want them to be super slick looking. I've started making some vector versions of, not versions, just different drawings that are vectors, just to keep everything super clean looking. But I really love this piece. I'm so happy that Trent picked this up. Yeah, it's one of my favorite drawings. One of my favorite ones, really.
So was the switch to digital, like, was that mainly due to NFTs, or were you saying that, that was something that you came to before NFTs, that, where you just had an aha moment, like, this is exactly what I wanted to do?
Yeah, it was before NFTs for sure. It was, I didn't really know what NFTs were yet at that point. It was more like, okay, let me try to do these drawings. I've been trying to do them. I've done some other ones digitally using Illustrator and stuff, and it just wasn't it was hard to make the drawings that way. Like there's, for me at least, doing stuff in vectors is like, it's hard to be super intuitive. To me, it's more like I need to have everything worked out, and I'm just like kind of tracing at that point for me to do that. It's not as intuitive. Or whereas on an doing stuff with the Apple Pencil and the iPad and stuff, I'm not trying to make it a commercial for iPads here, but they really were so like, it was like, oh my God, it really was like the next best thing to doing it on a drawing on a piece of paper, except I could actually do a whole bunch of other stuff with it too. And so that was really that was super amazing for me, because it just did exactly what I wanted it to do in terms of like taking these drawings that I thought I wanted them to be they felt kind of finished to me as drawings on a sketchbook, but they didn't look finished to anybody else, I would think. And so it just seemed like the perfect way to the next step for them to go in. And because I've been intentionally trying to keep them really sort of simplified, I guess. I've tried to do some with more values and making them look more three-dimensional and things like that. But thus far, anyways, I haven't really found anything that I thought that I really loved that worked better than what I was doing with these. So, yeah, and so the NFT thing came a little bit later than that, for sure.
And that's an interesting thing, right? Because having so many people that were artists before NFTs, and obviously that's a whole lot of people, but NFTs have really changed, I think, for a lot of folks, the way they've been interacting with their art. And maybe that's something that, we could discuss, because as you said, here you are like teaching art, you're being an artist, now that you have a little more time, like you're doing the thing, but this gives you an entirely different avenue, because it's something that, you don't have to go to galleries, you don't have to go like set up at the, the art shows, and
Right.
wherever there are festivals. Like now you have a much wider reach and a bigger audience without, as much, I guess, and I don't want to say
For
work,
sure.
because it's a different kind of work, but
It is, and it's actually more work in some ways than I thought. Like I had never I made a Twitter account so that I could, when I got into looking what NFTs, or it's like, people are like, oh, you should go on Discord. I'm like, what is Discord? So, I was relatively anti-social media just because of the whole, I won't go into that, but not that I thought they were like awful or anything, but it just wasn't really for me. I'd rather, steer clear. And so I went into Discord and I found all these people. It was just like, I forget the name of the server. It's just like NFT server or something. It was pretty big. It was all these people. Lots of people said, oh, this is a good place to start. And I'm just like asking questions like crazy in the chat, like, what's an NFT? Hey guys, how do I get started in this? What is this all about? And people are like, pushing all these PFP projects and stuff that I didn't even know were PFP projects. And somebody said, oh, hey, you're an artist. You want to join my server here? If you want to do some drawings. They're trying to get me to make some artwork to draw these. They were just like little alien heads. And so I'd make a drawing and I send them this drawing and they were like, oh, that's good. Can you do one more? We want to really evaluate if your artwork is going to work with us. And I was like, well, am I going to get paid for any of this at some point? Or like, am I just making drawings? Like, this is taking time for me. What am I doing here? And they're like, oh yeah, we'll pay you all this money when we go live, and they'll start selling, and then we're going to pay you. They're like, I think they said something ridiculous, like $20,000. We're going to give you $20,000 to do these drawings. And I was like, and I didn't know any. It sounded so sketchy to me, but at the same time, I thought, I don't really understand this space. You're seeing stuff in the media. Somebody's buying an NFT that I didn't even know what an NFT was for, millions of dollars. And I'm like, maybe they really are having like this money to pay me $20,000 for this. It just sounded so crazy though. But I did a couple more drawings, and then at some point I was like, no, man, like I'm not going to just keep doing this for free. Like, give me like something, give me even like $20, just like a show of, goodwill or something. And they were like, no,
altcoins or something, maybe.
Yeah, like anything, right? And they were just like, oh, no, sorry, we can't do that. And so I just like completely bailed on the thing. And that was obviously a good move. And then from there, I found Whale Server somehow. I'm trying to remember how that even happened. Might have been on Twitter. And because that was the one good bit of information I did get on there was, hey, if you're on Discord, you should go to Twitter. Okay, so I went to Twitter, made a Twitter account, found you guys, and it's been super amazing, because I soon sort of realized that, just the more accurate information of what was going on. And it's taken like a while to sort things out in my mind. But yeah, so I'm super grateful for the whale community, and you guys are awesome. So thank you.
We are definitely glad to have you with us. Like, that's, kind of as long as I've been in this space, and then in whale, which is not quite as long as I've been in the space, but like this has always been the place that I thought like made the most sense, because it's not focused on a bunch of like, oh, let's shill, whatever the new hot
Right.
fad is, and like, try to make a bunch of money on everybody else. It's more like I can come in regardless of my experience level and ask questions and get like legit answers, not,
Yeah.
be
Yeah,
kind of
for
led
sure.
astray. So like I'm excited to know that, that's been the experience for more people, and I really appreciate you sharing that story, because warm fuzzies.
Yeah. There's another artist in there too, and I should reach out to her or him again. And I'm not sure if it was a him or her, sorry, but because they were for a while doing the same thing, and I was like, this is like, they were young, they were like in high school or something, and I was like this is like a scam. Like everything just felt super wrong about it after like 20 minutes, right? And it was just like, but I think they stuck around making images, and I once in a while I've checked on like OpenSea and checked into their server again, and just the other thing that was so sketchy was they said, oh, the gas fees are, when they were supposed to like go live, the gas fees they said were too high, so he was just going to get people to buy it from him. Send me the money and I'll send you the images. And I was like,
no can do.
No. Yeah. So I had a couple other kind of sketchy experiences, just really briefly. Somebody else was like, oh, let's make this PFP project together. And he had this idea. I won't say what it was, but okay, so make the drawings. And I'm like, okay, how does this work? We, maybe you post half of them and I post half of them. And then we split all the money that ever comes in, because who knows which ones are going to sell or whatever. And he was like, no way, no, send them to me and I'll post them and I'll send you the money. I was like, so my first entrance into the NFT space was just like scam. And yeah.
But that's the difficulty of this space. Like half of the legitimate projects that actually will pan out and make you money also feel like scams. So it's like, how do you navigate between that?
For sure. Yeah. But I like the other thing that I realized that I was getting sort of caught up into is like, I was still doing like artwork for other people. Like I wanted to be doing my own stuff. And so I didn't know if I needed to do 10,000 PFPs of some sort, but I at least wanted them to be my own artwork. And that's sort of where I got some of these ideas of like these different, like the async one that's on the screen right now, right? Where, because I thought I needed to create a whole bunch of variations. Like I thought that's what was happening. I didn't know there was such a thing as like one-of-one artworks, people taking photos of oil paintings, selling them as one-of-ones. Like I didn't think that was a thing.
So we have the async page up on the site. I'll post that in the chat too. So you have a whole async market.
Yeah. So I mean, we'll see how it goes, right? I mean, the funny thing about this is like you're trying to sell. It's sort of like two things, right? Like once you're making the artwork, and I'm already making this stuff. Most of the images that were up here, like I said, I made the base images before I even heard of NFTs. And then at some point I was like, oh man, I have to create like, maybe I can't do 10,000, but I have to create these variations. So I started making all these different colored versions of the images. And then I was like, should I release like these 5-10 different colors? And I thought maybe that would be cool. Maybe some people will like different colors better than the others. And it was sort of a way in my head at that point where I thought because I can't just make 5,000 completely different drawings. Like that would be crazy, right? Like I just don't have the time to do that. And I thought, well, I can change the colors. It was still like a decent amount of work, right? But I thought maybe if I make like 5 different colored versions of each one, and then there's the dilemma of, do you afterwards, do I stick with that idea and try to sell them all for a lower price as one of ones, or do I just stick with the one base image and scrap all the other variations of them? And so I'm still sort of trying to sort that out. And, you know, it seems like you put stuff out there like my art experience and, you know, the way I was sort of taught to think about making art, I guess, was you just do it, just like try stuff. Like you don't know if it's going to work until you try it. So the async was, so these are a couple this is this idea, right? So the three at the top and then the ones on the side, just different variations based on the one on the bottom right was the original one that I made. Sorry, the other right, but and then I had another thought as well of there's the colored version that Trent picked up. So that's a one of one, and there are other colored versions of that, but I don't know if I should put them out there or not. And so my thought is sort of like if I've got the one up there and someone buys it, I'm not going to go and put up another one afterwards. That seems like super sketchy to me. But I also, if I have them up there, then I would sort of, you know, you're trying to adjust the prices and stuff. And so there's this whole other part of it. There's the making the art part, and then there's the selling part. And I've never been good at or have tried to do the selling part. So this is all kind of new. And, you know, the last thing I want to do is like make someone feel like I ripped them off, like they thought they were buying a one of one, and then all of a sudden there's another one that pops up that's a different color. And I don't even know what to label those. Like, are they, like, I wouldn't do that. If somebody bought one that I have listed, there's just one and they bought it, I wouldn't go dump the other colored ones. To me, the rest of those would be a wash, right? But I don't know what to call them if they're one of ones. They're sort of the same, but they're sort of different, right? And
let's ask the chat. You know, if anybody in stream text, if you have any, you know, your artist releasing work, let us know your thoughts in the chat. We'd love to hear out. You know, I'm sure that's a problem that a lot of creators in the space definitely face, of like the releasing and the editioning and like the ethics of it all. You know, we're all sort of still navigating this, you know, as we go, right? So definitely worthwhile questions.
We also have a question from the chat, wondering if some of your art is animated, because so far we've seen all just static images.
Yeah. I've been experimenting. Actually, I've got a bunch of different ideas. I've done some kind of a couple of rudimentary ideas of. I tried to share one of the videos with you guys earlier, but the limit on Discord was too small or whatever. Anyways, but I've got some one piece. Can you guys hear me? Okay, something okay. There is an animated work. I think I sent you guys a still image of it. Oh, the first one that we looked at with the color. You said it was really colorful looking. There's bubbles. So there's an animated version. Yeah, that one. So there's an animated version. This was the original image, and then I got rid of the bubbles that are in there right now and went into After Effects and created some actual bubbles that like float up the screen. There was a video that I posted on Twitter a while ago, and I think that might be Decryptolorian sent me an invite to Maker's Place, so I'll give him a shout out for that too. Thank you so much for that. That's very exciting. And so that animated version of that, I'm leaning really heavily into being my sort of Genesis piece on Maker's Place. And I've also done some other ones where there's like a hand that, like, you know, like the crazy kind of hands that I was making, and where it's like punching through, just like flying across the screen, kind of like punching through different things, flying around. And I thought that could be cool. I could make like a series of this hand that just keeps like breaking things as it just like keeps flying through the sky. I've done another one with some bullets, and the same idea where the bullet, there was a drawing that I made with one of these guys holding like a gun and he looked like all scared kind of. I don't know if I could find it fast enough to show you, or I would, but there's And then I thought it would be cool if the bullet shot out and then went through one of those little like black, I think of them as like portals of some sort where like their arms and everything are coming out of. And like the same bullet like came and like hit him, like he shot it and it came like from another direction and hit him. And then I'm not sure what's going to happen. And then I've had these ideas of making like just bullets shooting through these different things. And so I've got a bunch of different, I've got a bunch of other ideas for animated stuff that I'm pretty excited about, actually, that I probably should wait till I develop further to share. Sometimes I've made the mistake of that, you put something out there and then I end up like thinking, man, I don't even like that idea anymore. So I should stop there on the animation front, but I do have some ideas on that for sure.
Awesome. And that's kind of how art goes, right? Like it's a lot of ideation. You come up with all of these things, and some of them you're like, I'm going to start it, and part with you're just like, I just like I don't vibe with this. And there are other things that you're like, I don't know, I can't even get started on it. Like it's a great idea, but it's maybe not meant for me.
And that's compounded by blockchain, right? Because everything you put on the chain is permanent, right? So, I always counsel artists coming into the space, like, be very intentional about what you do because, that will be there forever, right?
Yeah, for sure. That's a scary kind of idea, right? I'm trying not to think about that too much. It's like, you know what? I tried something, it didn't work, and like, who cares? Like, I'm not perfect, and I'm not going to know if it works until I try it. But I do try to kind of let it sit for a while before I kind of do something with it, just for that. But even then, sometimes you put it out there, and it's not until you put it out there that you realize, like, oh, this is not the best idea. So yeah, it's crazy, but that's part of the excitement of it for me too, right? Is it keeps, something. My mind is, if I'm not doing art stuff, my brain's thinking about all sorts of other things that are just gonna like stress me out, and that I don't need to think about really. So it's like, okay, what am I gonna do this? What is the title for this thing? What am I gonna do? What's happening next? And so that's therapeutic for me, I think, to do that. So yeah, that's why I do art. So I'm not sure what some people will, what are these all about? And I don't know sometimes how to answer that, because I'm not thinking about what they are about when I'm making them. I'm just like making something. It's like, okay, I feel like I don't even know what I'm going to draw. I'm just like, just start drawing, and who cares what happens? If it sucks, then, it's done.
Well,
and then you make
what are the
something else
names
later.
about? I understand, not wanting too deep into the, the art itself, but, you have obviously a naming convention going on here. We're looking at your object page.
Yeah.
And, what's going on with that?
Yeah. So that partly came out of the idea that I thought I needed to create all these variations, number one. And it also, so there is like a numbering system. I thought for a long time about like what sort of things they are. But so yeah, the D is like, stands for dimension, and C is cluster, and S is seed. So the dimension one, all the ones that are labeled dimension one, like one Trent picked up, are all black and white only, and the one right next to it there. So anything that's like D1 is black and white, and then the C number cluster is the base drawing. So and then the S, the seeds, are like the different colors. And I like the idea of, I always like space, and sci-fi stuff is awesome, and so it sort of fit in with that idea. But it also allowed for just this, I don't even know what the drawings are about so much, so it was hard to come up with specific titles. And so I like that I can just, okay, here's the next number, and it also, to me, allows the person, the audience, or the viewer to interpret the art the way they want, without me telling them what to think when they look at my work. Sort of like, I don't know, there's all sorts of artists that just labeled their numbers, like Jackson Pollock or whatever, like, or Modrian, or like all sorts of people just like give it a number and things like that, right? So that sort of, that idea kind of went through my head as well, and it just seemed like, oh, this is perfect. I can just keep as many as I can make. I can just keep adding the numbers, and so that went up and they're also sort of broken down. The higher the Dimension 4 ones, I just kind of decided like which ones I thought were the better works that I put more time into, and those were like the higher dimension numbers. So like the D4 ones are like the ones on Foundation right now, just because ETH is more expensive. So I put those ones. These are all like D4 works, and I've got a bunch of other ones that I haven't put out because I'm just see what how these things are going to sell and stuff, right? And figure out how to price them. Even this, like I put the buy now at 1 ETH, I was thinking like, World of Warcraft style, like the buyout is going to make it like super high price because maybe someone comes along with a bunch of money and doesn't care about 1 ETH. But then the reserve price is 0.2, which sort of seemed reasonable at the time. But then but it only shows up, the reserve price doesn't show up. It looks like the price is 1 ETH, which I didn't know. So it's like, but whatever. We'll see what happens. And
I love that you've used World of Warcraft as your example for pricing, by the way.
yeah.
Like
Yeah.
That's is like that touches my heart for sure. And
right.
they're coming back
Right.
with the mobile auction house, so you can do it like on your phone again. Which is a danger thing. Like I haven't played WoW in a couple of years, but I feel like that might be the thing that gets me back.
Right. Yeah. Nor have I. I haven't played any games really in a bunch of years, but I did play when like day one when Warcraft came out. I was like, oh, this looks super cool. You can interact with other like real people, and I played for a number of years, but I haven't played in a long time. But yeah, that was my experience in like buying and selling was the auction house. So, anyways, so the dimension, I made a Dimension 5. I think I made that the async, or no, the animation. Is the animation? I forget what I decided to do, but I would have to, whatever I labeled it online or I wrote it down someplace. But so all the animated ones will be a separate dimension, and then the async one would be like these generative works would be a separate dimension as well. And yeah, so that's sort of how I've been dividing those up. And then also do a bunch of like the funny part is I have only started doing these drawings really turning them into finished works last couple of years. They just I've always been little sketches on papers and random. I'd have some paper random like on the back of an attendance sheet at school or something and like start drawing one of these things and then stick it in a sketchbook and then start doing more drawings. But all before that it was all photography. And I think I missed it was such a weird, like, it was like a transition. Like I was black and white film and darkroom. And I just loved the black and white darkroom. And then when I left school, I didn't have a darkroom anymore. And digital, it was right at the time when digital cameras were sort of like the first digital cameras when I first graduated were like you put the 1.4 meg floppy disk in the side of like I forget what it was like, I think it was a Kodak something or other, right? And it's like, if it's like a couple of pictures on it and that's it, right? And they're like 1 megabyte or less or something. And so I was still shooting, and then I started shooting color film and slides, and then I had this idea. I thought, oh, I'm going to try to do some like travel photography stuff and maybe submit like something to like a magazine, because that's like I was like reading photo magazines, right? As the internet was not so prevalent, and yeah, I guess I'm dating myself a little bit, but I went to BC. I went through all these like old growth forests and like super amazing, and shot all this like slide film. And I was thinking I'm going to submit these to a magazine, and then who knows if it would have worked out or not. But in my head, I was all excited. I was backpacking a tripod. I'm walking around, like setting up my tripod, taking all these shots, lock the mirror up, cable release, all this stuff. And then it just like completely devastating. We went into Vancouver for the day, went to the art gallery and parked in a parking garage. And I was so sick of carrying all my stuff around, I left it in the trunk. I did not know at the time in downtown Vancouver is not the place to leave stuff in your car. And I came back and camera was stolen and all the film was stolen. I just like freaked out in the parking lot. had like a complete like meltdown. But
that is a terrible
it was so
experience. Oh my
sad.
God, like I
Yeah,
feel the
yeah,
anxiety and just
yeah.
heartbreak there.
It was crazy. Yeah, it's crazy.
Oh my
Yeah, that's
gosh.
a whole story. There's some funny bits in there, but I won't go through that whole thing. But
I feel like we're gonna
yeah,
have to bring you back for stories about this because
yeah,
like
yeah.
we've heard a lot about your journey, which is amazing, and like seen a lot of your art, and then we've got photography here at the end, which is
Hmm.
actually a super great transition into our next guest, Arwin, as well, because she
Yeah, for
is
sure.
doing a lot of
Beautiful photos.
photography. So
Yeah,
that is amazing. Just the last thing before you go,
sure.
Troublescape, I've posted a bunch of links to like all your social and all the websites that we've shared today so people can check those out. Is there anything that we haven't shared that they need to know about you as an artist?
Uh, I don't know. I don't think so. I think you guys did a great job. Yeah,
Awesome.
I think we got everything out there. I didn't
All
have a
right.
particular agenda. I just wanted to talk with you guys, and so I think we're good.
Perfect. Well, Troublescape, thank you
Fantastic having you on.
so much for joining us. Like, I love the art that you shared today, and being able to see the sketches from, the start all the way through your finished product is a really cool thing for people to, be able to see your process. And I know some of the comments in chat, people were really excited about the thought process that you put into things, and
Hmm.
your story about the bidding with the World of Warcraft. Like, I feel that. So
Right, right.
that's amazing. And I know that we are all really excited to continue, following along in your journey here in the metaverse and see what else you have for us. So definitely we'll have to have you back so we can talk more photography stories in the future.
Yeah, I do. I want to start minting some more, putting some photos out. I was going to put some on object, so that's sort of one of the between all the other ideas I've got. That's one of the. We'll see what ones float to the top here.
Awesome. Well, we will
Yeah.
keep an eye on that, and
Thank you, guys.
we'll definitely have you back. Thank you so much, Troublescape. And we are going to now we will pull Arvin up onto the stage to our transition to our next community spotlight person.
Okay. Thank you,
Here we
guys.
go. Thank you so much. And dun dun dun, Arvin. Welcome to the stage, and thank you so very much for joining us today. How are you?
Jam.
See, Arvin is, I think, muted, so we
Still
will.
Okay, I got it.
Oh,
Sorry, I
you're here.
forgot I had muted myself. I'm good. How are you?
We are fabulous. I'm gonna answer for everybody. Apparently, I'm fabulous. I don't know.
Well, I really enjoyed listening about Troublescape, and his artwork is amazing. So.
It is super amazing. And it was a good transition, too. We got the photography right at the end. So now we can talk to you about your art and your photography, which is an amazing, oh my gosh, like I was looking through your stuff and I'm just blown away. So let's, before we look at all of the pretty art, we know that, you're a landscape photographer. You're based in Las Vegas, but you're actually traveling currently, which is fun. And you, similar to myself, have a computer science background. So we're going to need to hear some stories about this. Um, can
Okay.
you tell us? I guess give us your background. Tell us how you ended up going from computer science to photography, because this is a fun transition. I'm sure of it.
Okay, right. Well, in college, I was a computer science major, and I graduated from college right during the dot-com boom, so it was really exciting, and I, really enjoyed doing it a lot. But on the side, I always did photography. Actually, let me start over. Um, as we had discussed, when I was growing up, I lived in Michigan. And, there are nice landscapes there, but they're kind of flat and there's not really these grand landscapes that you see out west. So when I was in college in computer science at the University of Illinois, I got some internships out west. And the first one was at Microsoft in Seattle. And so I drove from Illinois to Seattle for that internship, and that was the first time I had really seen mountains, was when I hit Colorado. And I immediately fell in love. I was like, I cannot believe these beautiful sights. It's just absolutely amazing. And so from that point on, I wanted to move out west, and I bought my first camera, which back then was before digital. So it was an SLR, and it was Pentax, which I don't even think makes digital cameras nowadays. So I bought my camera, and while I was out doing the internship, I went out and took pictures of landscapes. I really didn't know what I was doing. It was film. Most of them did not turn out, but at least I had that, as a hobby. And then the next summer, I got an internship in New Mexico at Intel, and I did the same thing. And I slowly, started getting a little bit better at taking pictures, but still I wouldn't call them, fine art or art photography or anything like that. So when I graduated from college, I got a job at Intel in Portland, Oregon, and I moved out there. And while I was there, I actually took a photography class. And meanwhile, every weekend going out, to all the beautiful landscapes around Portland to take pictures. And I learned to develop my film and all of that kind of stuff. But then, life happens, and I was brought back to the Midwest, back to Illinois. And I kind of gave up photography for a while. I mean, I had a point and shoot camera, but I didn't really take photos of landscapes, because it was really the landscapes that inspired me, to try to take the photos. So in around 2010 or 2011, I started traveling to India for work because I managed a team there. And I was inspired by everything there, not only the landscapes, but just everything was so different than here. And it really inspired me. So that was when I bought my first digital camera. And it was a crop sensor, just a little camera. And I tried street photography there and a lot of things. But it was when I traveled to the Himalayas in India, so the mountains again, that I was really inspired to get back into landscape photography. So since around like 2012 or 13, I started getting back into it and using the digital camera. And then at the time, we were living in Los Angeles, and when we moved to Las Vegas about 5 years ago, I decided I would stop doing computer programming. So I had been doing that for like 20 years, but I decided I'd stop that and try my hand at starting a photography business. So that's when I really focused on refining and developing my craft and my art, and trying to really do something with it.
Gosh, and Vegas is such a good spot for photography too, because you're there, like a quick flight to the Grand Canyon. Actually, so my very novice photographer self, I went to Vegas for the draft in April and took one of those like little helicopter flights that like went over, like the western rim of the Grand Canyon. I was like, oh my God, like all of these sceneries. So I feel that, like when you talked about the mountains, I was like, oh my gosh, like all of this, like I don't know how to express that, but it's pretty magical. I don't know, maybe it's just that like we don't have that in Michigan, so it seemed cooler, but it was
right. So I mean, I don't usually do aerial photography, although I wouldn't mind trying it. I do have a drone and I do fly it, but I don't really, most of those photos don't see the light of day. Although a couple on this tweet are from a drone. But usually I use the camera. And so like for me, instead of thinking the Grand Canyon's a quick flight, I think like, oh, it's only a 4-hour drive, I'll just drive there and take pictures. So, most of the places I photograph, as you can see from this is actually a good example of my work, are in the states that border Nevada. There's one photo in this, the bottom left, which is Colorado. So it doesn't technically border Nevada, but the rest are from Utah, Arizona, California. So I drive a lot. I drive all over, to take these pictures. And I don't just go like, for me, you can also tell from my photography, I like what I call dreamy yet realistic. So if you go to one of these places, it will look like this, but not exactly like this. Like, I had to really try to get these conditions that I thought would really enhance the landscape. And that's a big thing about my photography is, you know, um, I don't really I really like the sky. Like the sky is something that really inspires me as well as the landscape. So in almost all of my photos, I'll try and find a composition that I can combine the sky with the landscape. And the more I take photos, the more I start to like more dramatic skies. Like the top left one at Monument Valley is one of my recent photos. And it has, the storm with the rainbow. So I've been definitely getting more into that as I refine my style of photography.
And those are super fun. So that's something that, I think is interesting, right? Because looking at these, like you have the land composition, and that's something you said you're driving to. So you're like going and discovering these places. And I imagine you're also discovering a lot of neat places along the way to these places specifically. But then getting these conditions, like to be able to, and I guess maybe I should ask the question first, but like these, sun flares here, if that's the proper term to call them, I don't know. I know that, if you're using like just Instagram app and it's like, oh, do you want to add these extra tools? But like here you've, I think captured the actual sun doing the thing. Is that the case?
Right. Yeah. So, right. So for me, maybe it's because I come from the computer science background, but a big part of photography for me is the planning. So I really like to plan everything else in advance. So yes, I might discover spots on the way, but then I'll just kind of mark them down. I'll explore them and kind of find some compositions and mark them down. I won't really take a photo right then because it kind of needs to percolate in my head. Like, how do I want to portray that place? And what do I want? Should it be a night one or should it be a day one? And what conditions do I think it would look really good in? And so then I kind of plan, I have some apps that I can use to figure out where the sun will be at certain times of the year. And so I kind of plan, okay, it would be great if I could get this place in January at sunrise with some partly cloudy skies, I don't know, something like that. Or Monument Valley, I thought, okay, I'll go there during the monsoon. And because I'm facing away from the sun at sunset, if I shoot at sunset, maybe I can get a rainbow. So that was like one of the most recent trips I took. That was one of my goals, to get a rainbow at Monument Valley. And I got this small rainbow, as you can see. I wish I had gotten a bigger one, but I'll have to try again. So I do a lot of planning, and it might be, like I said, from my technical background. And so to get these sun stars, I call them sun stars. People call them different things. But I kind of plan in advance using these apps, when should I go there, so that the sun will be in the position that I want it to be. And there's certain, you can use a sun star in certain ways. My first collection, which is sold out, of NFTs was called Troublescapes, and each photo in it had a sun star in the photo. And so the bottom two are from that, the bottom middle two are from that collection. And so, I think a lot about, do I want to use the sun to draw the eye to the subject? Like in the right one, I put it right there in the middle of the arch, so it really draws the eye. And also with these rocks at the bottom that are kind of swerving and leading towards the arch, it also draws the eye to the arch, which is the subject of the photo. And I really think the clouds help to do that as well. So this is in the Alabama Hills, which is about a 4-hour drive from Vegas. So I go there a lot. And it took me years to get a photo of this arch that I really, truly loved. That I thought was unique and really showcased my style. And I liked the composition. I tried so many things and, just came away, no, this isn't it. This isn't it. But then when I got it, I knew that's it.
Oh my gosh.
And so sometimes I use Oh, thanks. Sorry. Sometimes I use the sun star, to unify the sky with the land. Like, I don't have an example in this one, but if I have a flat horizon, I like to have a sun star a lot of times to kind of help the eye go between the sky and the land. So I think a lot about, how I want the composition to be, and what time of year and what conditions. And then I just keep trying to get that. So some of my photos, might be from common places, like the top middle one is Yosemite and the top left is Monument Valley. But I feel it really portrays those places in a way that, really showcases the beauty of them.
That is absolutely stunning. I was going to say we should definitely take a look at more of your amazing work. And I don't know if there's somewhere else we can find these sun stars, whether that's Foundation or OpenSea. We can poke around there. But before we do that, we have to do the POAP code so that way we don't miss out on it because it will expire at 11 a.m. So we have 7 minutes. So we're going to do the POAP code for everybody who is waiting for that. Get your little POAP app out, and the code is, secret phrase, is going to be amazing works. So boop it on the bottom of the screen to make it real easy for people to find it. And Arwin, where can we see more of your amazing works at? Should we go to Instagram first, or?
I do have everything on Instagram, but some of them are cropped in ways that I don't particularly like.
Okay.
So I would say maybe if you bring up Foundation, it has a lot more of my recent work. It doesn't have the sun stars. So if you want to talk a little bit about the sun stars, that's on OpenSea.
All right, well, let's go to OpenSea.
If I could just ask a quick process question, I am curious. Like, you talked about your extensive prep, and it really shows, how much thought you've put into the compositions here. I'm wondering, are you like, is there a lot of like physical exertion and like trekking out? Are you like, you're doing all these drives up, but are you like, walking through brush, camping out there for hours to get just the right light conditions? I'm just wondering what the process is like for you when you're actually on site.
Right. Well, sometimes I do hike, although I'm not a huge hiker. I mean, I do hike and I like to hike, but carrying all my camera equipment and hiking and going back to the same place can be difficult. So I do that sometimes. Like, there's one photo, I think it was in what we were just looking at, actually, which is probably like a 1.5 mile hike, the one on the bottom right. And yeah, that one. And so for that one, in that weekend, I actually hiked out there like 3 times, and it's kind of uphill because I didn't get the clear skies and, the still lake for the reflection until the 3rd time. But a lot of the locations are more driving, like the one in the bottom left, the other Milky Way one, is a pretty rough, like, Jeep trail, I would call it. So it's quite a ways, driving over rough. And luckily I got the Milky Way in that one on the first try, which is very unusual for me. But like Monument Valley, you don't have to hike. Valley View at Yosemite, you don't have to hike. So, I do hike, but not always. And I'm still working on locations that are easier. So probably once I'm done with them, then I'll, have to hike even more. And there are, ones that I definitely hike for, but I'm not, I do camp. I usually camp at the place, especially when I'm shooting Milky Way, but it's more like car camping. And so, I'm not one of those ones who does these huge treks and things like that, although I would like to do that at some point. But part of it is that I'm often by myself and I don't really want to do that alone. So like my husband has a pretty intensive job, so he can't always come with me, but I do have it in my plans to, do some more like intensive treks and overnight sometime when he can come and when the kids would agree to it, or maybe when they're in college. I don't know. But
Hey, if these are the easy locations, I can't wait to see the, the intensity.
We actually had a comment in the stream text wondering what kind of wildlife you've encountered during these photos. Like while you're out, especially when you're doing like, the more, hike heavy endeavors, like, are you also encountering the animals?
Well, I encounter animals even when I'm not hiking. I've encountered moose, bears, of course, tons of deer, marmots, little things. But I don't photograph wildlife. I look at them and enjoy them, but it's just not my photography choice. I think I feel like I miss out a little on like seeing them and watching them if I'm trying to photograph them. So and I just, like I said, I was inspired by the mountains and the ocean and these landscapes. And so that's what I truly love, to photograph. So
it's kind of fun to think about how, for a lot of people, like they might be more excited about the animals. And photography really is, like, the special thing about it is it's, you capturing this, specific things. Like, it's not the big picture. It's, even though you're taking a very big picture, it's a very focused subject. And that's really wild to think about, like how specific you can, make these subjects while taking such a giant picture.
Yeah, I mean, that is true. I mean, if you look at each of my photos, like each of the ones here, I'm sure you can pick out a subject, maybe not so much in the Yosemite one, which is in the center, but in the rest of them. And so that's something I really try to do in my photography is, to identify what is my subject, what made me really want to take this picture. And everything else in the photo should enhance that and lead to that and help, your eye to get to that subject. So, along those lines, that's something that I really look for and I really try and emphasize in my photography. And so sometimes they can, look a little, I wouldn't call them minimal because it's definitely not minimalistic photography, but it makes it a little more, I think, organized maybe, to have a clear subject in the photo that I'm really, that's what I'm trying to do. Oh, you were saying?
Oh no, I was just saying, like, this is maximal photography, the exact opposite. Everything in the world, like the entire Milky Way is in here. So, that's pretty
right. Yeah. But it's, like some people try and cram a lot of things into the photo. And I feel like, I do try to isolate my subject a little bit more and make sure that everything contributes to enhancing that. That's what I usually try and do with my photography. So even if the Milky Way is in it, I feel like the Milky Way either draws the eye to the subject or leads to the subject or, somehow enhances the subject of the photo, which is the landscape. So.
And I would say there's a lot of Milky Way in your photos as we're scrolling through. Like, look at these colors, like this. Oh my goodness.
Right. So one of my favorite things to photograph is, a landscape under the Milky Way. And I've been developing, how to do that for a long time. So, when one would start out photographing the Milky Way, the landscape would just kind of be a dark silhouette and you would see the Milky Way. But I really like to have, the detail in the landscape. So you wouldn't actually see that with your eye. When you go out there, you'll see, the Milky Way in the sky and everything will be kind of dark. But usually what I do is I use a very long exposure. So like 5 to 7 minutes or even more. And that's enough time that you can get enough light from the stars to illuminate the landscape. So if you take such a long exposure like that, the Milky Way will be star trails. It won't be pinpoint stars. So I have to combine 2 exposures, one for the sky and one for the land. It's actually more than that, but to make it a little simpler to explain, one for the land and one for the sky. And then you can get all the detail in the land from the light of the stars. So, I leave my tripod with my camera in the same place. So often I'm out there for hours. Sometimes I also take a photo at blue hour, like in the bottom left one, the luminescent lesson. The very bottom of it with the log is from the blue hour, so that I could get the log in focus. But then where you see the colors reflecting in the lake from the Milky Way, I guess
we'll try to make it bigger. We'll wait till it loads.
I think if you click on it, maybe it'll load.
Real quick though, are you doing any additional like post processing or editing? Do you do any like color correction or anything like that, or is this all in camera, just layered different exposures laying on top of each other?
So I take the exposures separately. So as I was saying in this one, the log in the front is from blue hour, and then the colors from the Milky Way is from that really long exposure, which was like 7 minutes in the water. And then the Milky Way in the sky is a very short exposure, like maybe 10, 15 seconds at a high ISO. And so then I combine them all in Photoshop. But it's not like I'm like, putting the Milky Way where it wasn't. It was right there. If you would look at my processing, which maybe I should have brought on, but I didn't, you will see when I take all 3 of these photos, the blue hour, the long exposure, and the sky, they're all the same. It's just that you can see different things better in them.
Yeah,
so like the log,
as if you were focusing on a different point at each one, right?
Right. So like the log wasn't really in focus when I did the long exposure, and it would have been hard because I was very close to the log. So to do a 7-minute exposure for all the different focal points I would have needed to get the whole log in focus, would have been too difficult to do at night, which is why I used the blue hour for that. But yet I wanted the colors from the Milky Way in the lake, so I had to use the long exposure for that. So usually when I'm out taking photos, even the daytime photos, I combine exposures like this. Not all, but many. And I have in my head, like as I'm doing it, this is how I'm going to combine it. And these are the photos I need to take in order to combine it. Like, for example, if I was shooting this one during the day, I might get light on the mountain, earlier in the shoot, and then, a beautiful sunset in the sky later in the shoot. And so I might combine those two. But I have my tripod there in the same place the whole time. So I could be there, for 2 hours from the time golden hour starts until the time blue hour ends. Taking exposures for whatever catches my eye, of this same scene. And then I'll kind of combine them to take the best from each. So if you go up to the Yosemite one, which is at the top, that one actually was a couple combined because it was pretty overcast. It's not opening, is it?
There's too much epicness in one photo, so it takes a minute. That's all.
It was pretty overcast when I was taking this photo. So most of the photos are just kind of gray and, there's no light on El Capitan, but there was a brief moment when I got the light, the sliver of light on El Capitan. And then it wasn't until after that I got this pinkish color in the sky. And so, I was here taking photos the whole time. And to me, the experience wasn't seeing the light on El Capitan separately from when I saw the color. It was just the whole experience, of seeing the color and the light. And so I combine in my photos to get that whole experience, the best ones from throughout the shoot. So this one, I had been trying to get these conditions at Yosemite forever. It's kind of an interesting story. I had gone there early when I started photography. I had no idea what I was doing. It was probably one of the first places I had gone to. And it was at Thanksgiving, which is kind of early for snow. It's like people might think, oh, Yosemite's in the mountains, it's easy to get snow there, but it's actually kind of hard because it's not that high of an elevation, and it's still kind of warmed from the ocean because, you know, it's not too far inland. So it doesn't get that cold. So usually if it does snow, it melts right away. And usually when it snows, it only snows in the mountains and in the cliffs and not really in the valley itself. So it's harder than you would think to get snow there. And the first time I ever went there, which is when I just started photography, was at Thanksgiving, which is kind of early for snow. And we got this huge snowstorm and all this snow. And we were just driving around. I had no idea. I wasn't planning my photos at that point. And I saw this beautiful view. I didn't know what it was. And I pulled over with my family and started taking pictures. And I got this amazing sunset, like one of the best sunsets you have ever seen. And all my photos were horrible. And they were all in JPEG. I wasn't even shooting in RAW, so I couldn't edit them. And so ever since that day, at first I didn't even know which view I was at when I got that great condition. But then later I found out it was Valley View, which is one of my favorite spots now in Yosemite. Ever since then, I've been trying to go back every winter and get something that could even be, you know, similar conditions to that. And when I first started trying to go from Vegas, actually, I think I first started when I lived in LA trying to go back for like a year before I moved to Vegas. I got foiled so many times because I didn't know how to know if there would actually be snow. So like some of the, you know, weather forecasts would predict snow, but then you'd get there and there would just be a light dusting of snow on the cliffs and there wouldn't be, you know, any accumulation of snow that would actually give me what I wanted. So later I found out that you have to look on weather.gov and you have to wait until there's a winter storm warning. And then you're pretty much guaranteed to get snow, although it might be less than you want. So it took me many times of trial and error and learning and figuring this out. And then finally last winter, I was able to get, you know, kind of the photo I had imagined in my head that I would want. And so, you know, to make it a little more unique, it has the long exposure clouds in the sky. You can see how they're streaking. And then if I hadn't gotten that sliver of light on El Cap, I don't think it would have been the photo. I would have had to keep trying. So.
Wow, these are so beautiful. And, you know, as you were explaining how, you know, you took these photos and, you know, kind of had, you know, unfortunately the JPEG format and like, you know, the heartbreak of feeling this, right? Because like it's such a beautiful shot. This made me think of like as we were looking at your pictures, you know, and we're going through, let's see, where were we? Guess we'll have to go back here. Yeah, we're looking through and we see a lot of the sky. We see a lot of the Milky Way. You know, we've got a little bit of sun. What we really don't have, and this makes me suspicious a little bit about things that come out terrible. I don't see the moon at all. Does the moon give you a hard time? Because I swear to God, every time I try to take a picture of it, it's like, no.
I have a few photos with the moon.
Are there?
And I don't have.
So you're a wizard.
I don't have any of them here. But I don't shoot the moon because, you know, for the moon, you use a really long lens. And how to explain it?
It's weird science because it's so big and yet it does not photograph at all.
Right. I mean, I can photograph the moon, but it's just not like I love to have a beautiful landscape in my photo. And so, you know, you can photograph the landscape with a moon, but you're usually only going to get a small piece of the landscape in. So like I've gone to Yosemite and I photographed Half Dome with the moon. And you get, you know, like a sliver of Half Dome and then a big moon. And it's just not like what I'm drawn to. Like what I'm drawn to and what I love is, seeing more of the landscape and seeing the conditions in the landscape and the reflections in the landscape and the way the light plays with the landscape, or even the night light, like the starlight, the way it plays with the landscape. So that's more what I'm interested in. So my photos that have the moon, it's more the moonlight, because that's what I love, than the moon itself, if that makes any sense.
That does. And, that's something that, as I look at a lot of photography, like I said, I try to take the pictures sometimes, and I'm just like, it's such a giant thing. Like, I can see it with the trees, and like, yeah, as you said, like, it doesn't play nicely, like it is either one or the other.
Right.
Or,
Well, if you want to photograph the moon with a landscape, you have to do it at sunrise or sunset, basically, or just after sunrise or sunset. So it has to be, on the full couple days before or after the full moon, depending on if you want sunrise or east facing or west facing. It would be a couple days before or a couple days after. And also depending on if you're in the ocean or in mountains, it might be a few more days before or after. But you can't photograph the moon with a landscape in the dark because the dynamic range is just too large. You can if you take multiple exposures and combine them, but you'll never get it in one exposure.
Gotcha.
So you have to do it like blue hour or sunset, closer to when there's more light in the sky, and then you can get the land with the moon.
Interesting. Like that's one of those things that it's always been a very big mystery to me. So thank you for explaining, because looking at this, it seems like that would be a thing that would fit in. And I love how you keep talking about blue hour too, which is kind of a very special time of day for photography. Is that, I guess, if you were looking at times that you favor the most, is that kind of the one that you take the most photos in? Or
no, not at all. In fact, none of my photos are just blue hour. I do have blue hour blends with the Milky Way, but for me, it's either in the dead of night with the Milky Way or at sunrise or sunset. So since we're looking on foundation, most of my Milky Way shots are here. But on, in my Sunstarscapes collection on OpenSea, then there would be no Milky Ways. So I think if you go to collection, Sunscapes, the first one.
Sunscapes. Yeah, the Sunscapes.
So this one, there won't be any Milky Way because the, point of this one is the sun. So they're all, they all have the sun with rays in frame. Some of them are more visible than others. Easier to find. Some of them you have to zoom in to see the sun in the frame. But it's just something I really like to shoot because I think not only can it add to the composition, but it often adds more dramatic light. And that's, as I was saying, what I love is, the light in the photo. So that's one reason, I tend to shoot into the sun. And I was talking about, if you have a straight horizon line, so if you look at the bottom left one at Horseshoe Bend, that has a really straight horizon line. And so I kind of use the rays from the sun. I wonder why it got, oh, there it goes. So I use the rays from the sun in that one to help lead to the subject, lead the eye from the sky to the subject of the photo, which is the Horseshoe Bend, and then back to the sky again. So the eye kind of, keeps remaining in the photo and looking at it with the help of that sun star. So I think about that a lot when I'm composing these is, when should I go there to get it in a spot that would help to contribute to the composition.
That's amazing. And it's, as you're talking about, kind of having your eye, take this path, you've even got the clouds working with you because they've got this, they're all kind of pointing you down this way. You're like, oh, come look at the sunshine, which is okay, now go this way. And that's amazing how that all works together like that.
And that's kind of what I look for. So if I don't think the clouds really complement it, then I probably won't use those photos, and I'll have to go back and try it again. And even if I travel internationally, like I went recently to a year ago to the Dirtle Door in the UK, and I just stayed at the Dirtle Door the whole time because I had to get the conditions that I thought would really be wonderful there. And so I spent like 4 days, just keep going back to get it. Instead of, a lot of people would go to a lot of different spots because they're like, oh, I'm in the UK, I have to get all these photographs. But if I tried to do that, I would come away with no photographs. I would rather have one that I like that I can add to my portfolio than none at all. So.
We have people in the chat now looking up the Dirtle Door, and this looks really cool. It almost looks like a sea serpent. For context, we'll pull up this image that they had from Wikipedia, so you can see my sea serpent. Is this is what you saw?
Right. So that's the Dirtle Door, the arch, the sea arch specifically. So I think if you go on Instagram, you can probably see my photo from there, although it's kind of cropped weird.
Right. No. Hold on. Let me put on the Instagram on.
Oh, actually, it's on my website, the right version. Why don't you go to my website?
Sure thing.
It's photography by Arwin. Yeah. So if you go to photos, and scroll down. Oh, it's the bottom left.
There we go. Look at that.
So I didn't add the sky or anything. I just kept going back until I got like the photo that I thought was, how I would want to portray it. And luckily I got it in that trip because I'm not sure. Well, I am planning to take another trip there because I want to take it with the Milky Way. And it wasn't the right time of the year to get it with the Milky Way. But then this, was kind of, as soon as I saw it, I knew I would want something like this.
Yes, and you got the sun with the pink, it's so pretty. My goodness.
So that's another thing is I do really like colors. So you'll notice in most of my photos, there are some exceptions, but in most of them, they are pretty colorful.
They're so colorful and magical. It's very ethereal, which is amazing because even though, as you've expressed, these are things you can actually go and see, they exist. They feel otherworldly.
Right. And I think that's how I like it. Like my name, Arwin, is from the Lord of the Rings. And so I think I've always just been kind of, into fantasy and, things like that. And so this kind of, these photos kind of take me into that land, even though it's Earth, it's like kind of a different fantastical or fantasy feeling for me. So
it's not the Earth I see on a daily basis. So yeah, this is pretty amazing.
How awesome is that? So you have so much amazing photography. It's, let me repost all of your social posts so that way people will be able to follow you in all the places. I'm going to put that in the community stream text. So they have all the links that we have up here now. And we have looked at, we've looked at all of these cool sun stars, which you even have one at Dirtle Door, which is amazing. You also, you have a lot of different collections. And these are, things that I think are really exciting for people to be able to look at.
Right. I mean, some of them are just to hold standalone pieces because I don't really have anywhere to put them without them being in a collection. But I really only have 3 collections.
Okay.
The Troublescape, and then Pillars of the Earth, a Prelude, if you go to the right. That one. Yeah. And so what I'm doing now is all of my upcoming collections are Pillars of the Earth. And basically, Pillars of the Earth are, objects that are made of Earth, that come from the Earth and extend into the sky. And I find that they're one of my favorite subjects to photograph because I love the way they unify the sky with the landscape, which, is the whole reason I do photography. And so this was the first one, Pillars of the Earth, a Prelude, which is all from the Oregon coast. And they're some of my favorite photos. And they're currently all sold except the second one, the Milky Way one. And then I also released Pillars of the Earth Timeless, which is, if you go further right, a collection of editions. And that sold out except for a few that I'm holding for airdrops. And so each of these had 20 editions of each photo. And it's going to be a collection of 10 photos. And I'm about to release the next ones, which are 2 from Monument Valley. Each of them are day and night. It's called Timeless because it's supposed to show, the progression of time in timeless landscapes by showing the same landscape in day and in night. So the first 2 are from the same location, one at day and one at night. And the second 2 are the same location, one at day and one at night. And each of them will be like that. And so that's the 3 collections that I currently have created. And I don't release work very fast because I don't have a lot of work. Like I said, if I go on a trip, I might come away with 1 photo or 2 photos. And so, I can't just release a ton of stuff. But I do continue to release it slowly as I can.
Well, and to be honest, like looking at the quality of work that you're releasing, like I think if you were releasing a whole bunch of them, like it maybe would almost be a little bit less special because these, are very distinctly different photos, even though it's the same, subject. But, if you had a bunch of them that are like, oh, kind of similar, like it would feel far less magical. So definitely, I feel like the approach that you're taking is the way to go, and being so discerning about which photos you're choosing. And you're having so many adventures in the meantime. Like this is
right.
Oh
yes.
My goodness.
So I always enjoy being out there taking photos. So
wow. Well, how amazing. I know we've kept you past the time for this stream, but we've been having so much fun looking at all of your art. So I really appreciate you joining us today. Arwin, is there anything that we have not covered that we should before we let you go for the day?
No, I think you've covered everything. Anyone who wants to see my NFTs can find me on OpenSea and on Foundation and Maker's Place. I'm about to release some new work there as well. And everything's in my link tree.
Awesome. And we've got all of those links posted in the stream text chat for everybody too. So everything that we showed on the screen today. And we, like I said, really appreciate you coming and joining us and sharing this magic with the community because this is definitely not something that people see every day. So the fact that you are able to put that out to the world is a really special thing.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
Thanks for being with us.
Absolutely. We'll give a big thank you to the Whale members for joining us today, and to Wes for being an amazing co-host as well. This is good to have our community here and, supporting each other, being able to do these spotlights. We will be back again in another couple weeks with another community spotlight and have plenty of whale programming in the meantime. So everybody, thank you so much for joining today. Have a fabulous rest of your day, good weekend, and we'll see you again soon.